Okay, who is ready for a very exciting talk on FinOps? I mean, I see some hands, but I want to hear it. Like, who's ready for this? The really good talks are upstairs. This one's gonna be okay. All right. So thank you for coming, though. Today I'm going to be talking about a fun topic that the community chose. I was very surprised that I was selected, so I'm happy to do this. I was selected before I joined the FinOps Foundation, so hopefully this wasn't, just home cooking here. So, I'm Beau Nelford. I work as a staff community architect on the Focus project, and this talk is on build once, run any, serve any BI tool, and yes, that includes AI agents, which we're all here for, and hopefully we haven't gotten sick of hearing about. So we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. So I'm holding your attention, but we'll talk about that then. So who am I? Why do I care about this? So I've been using Linux Foundation software my entire career. As a DevOps engineer, as a QA engineer, as a data center manager, and throughout my history, it's been fun to use these different tools and to see how the space has evolved. But this pattern that I'm going to show you today is derived from object-oriented programming. It's derived from this concept of being dry, not dry in humor, but dry in programming. Don't repeat yourself is the concept here. So we'll talk about this. So raise of hands, how many people have heard of Focus? Thank you. You were paying attention in the keynote today. Have you seen us over at the Focus Lab? If you haven't come over and talked to us, please come over and talk to us. I appreciate all forms of feedback, including fashion feedback and other types of things too that are less Focus related. But the Focus is the unified standard for billing data across technology. We are in a working group where we're actively working to get cloud providers, neo clouds, data platforms, and SaaS tools that are starting to bill in meters to export their data in a common format. One schema, one format, same columns, different tools. So for those of you who have had this, who understand this pain, you are probably dealing with proprietary data from each of your providers. You're trying to do transformations on that, and it stinks, right? It is very, very difficult. So the pattern that I'm going to talk to you about today is built upon the substrate of the Focus specification. So if you aren't using it yet, you may not see this problem, but you will if you start using it. And it's not a data problem specifically, but how many of you are at a company that has more than one BI tool? Yes. So maybe I'll ask the inverse of the question. How many have only one BI tool at their company? That guy over there. Awesome. Cool. So most of the time, my experience has been you have a BI tool. It's for one group of executives. And then another one comes along and says, I actually really like Looker, so I'm going to use Looker. Someone else comes along and says, no, I'm a Tableau fan, so I'm going to use that. So what happens when you start creating KPIs, so like effective savings rate, you do one dashboard, and then you do the next dashboard, and it's slightly different. And you're like, why is that different? And then AI comes along and just makes one up completely. But effective savings rate, the problem that we have here is that we have business logic living in the dashboard, in the layer that's supposed to be showing you what you're doing, what in the BI layer. So which of these answers goes to the CFO? If more than one does, the CFO is not going to be happy, right? So, with Power BI includes DAX, but it can include, marketplace purchases or exclude marketplace purchases using contracted costs. And again, just AI hallucinates. It's generative AI. It literally lies for fun. So how do we deal with this problem? So let's talk about what Focus does for you. Focus is kind of like the pantry. The pantry. It gives you common ingredients, but your job as the practitioner is to build a recipe. We got to build a recipe on top of that data. So it'll tell you, it'll give you the common schemas, it'll give you the consistent identifiers, but it will not tell you what to do with that data, how to aggregate that data. Creating those KPIs, that's your job as the practitioner. And 3 years ago, we couldn't even do this. So Focus helped expose the problem, and I'll talk about a solution of how to deal with this problem that we have. So for those of you, let's, again, another straw poll here. I'm very, very scientific, by the way. Medallion architecture. Who's familiar with medallion architecture? Okay, we've got a few. So this is a common pattern in ingesting large data sets. Is you're going to, raw data is generally goes into your bronze layer. Then you start cleaning it up, doing some cleaning and conforming in the silver layer. And in the gold layer, you're adding some business metrics that are specific to you. So this is the layer that you're wanting to query when you're doing this work. Well, the problem is that then you're doing math in the consumption layer. You're adding in the KPIs, the effective savings rate, into the BI tool, and that's a problem. Because now it's not meant to hold that data. It's not meant to do calculations. Your gold layer is not meant to have KPIs welded to that in the table. So now you could have different, in your gold layer, if you're doing this like most people do it, you could end up having metrics welded to those tables at different grains, and you could then give those different answers even from the same table. So what's the fix? The idea here is you have two things. A metrics contract that's defined as how you define KPIs in one layer, and then an engine that serves that contract. That can be, and a lot of the tools, the BI tools now actually have these built in. Snowflake has a semantic layer built in, Databricks has one. So if you're using one of those tools already, look for a semantic layer or a semantic engine in those tools. But if you don't have one, there's AtScale, there's Cube, there's DBT's semantic layer that uses MetricFlow. There's a lot of these other things that will take that metric that you've defined once and gotten finance to bless it. They will tell you, like, that will serve that up. And what it does behind the scenes is then you point your BI tool directly at that engine. That engine's computing those views automatically based on your KPIs. So now what happens is, so this is kind of what that looks like. So in your gold views, what you're going to want to do, and for those of you who have been over to the Focus Lab, we've talked about this. We've just released version 1.4 of Focus. It adds 2 more data sets and about 57 more columns. But how do you deal with data that's now in multiple formats? Well, in your gold layer, you can use the coalesce function to coalesce statements or data that was in multiple versions, which is just so easy in Focus, completely impossible in proprietary data formats. But this is a way that you can do that in gold views to say, this is how we get data into the right format here. So coalesce, keyword there. This is your metrics contract. So in YAML, not too difficult to understand, but this is the definition that we want to put in place. Ironically, I have here, what if I wanted to change this contracted cost minus effective cost over the contracted cost? What if I wanted to change that to the KPI from the FinOps Foundation that is 1 minus the effective cost over the list cost? That's their defined de facto version. Well, I wouldn't have to go into 3 or 4 different tools and into an agent skill to change that. I would change it in one place, have that version tracked, and then point all of my consumers directly at that engine so that they get the changes that I want there. Let's see. So what is that? Why does that sound so good? Well, now you can use any single tool and get the same result. You have it computed in one place. It's now version controlled, auditable, tracked, and you're not guessing anymore. Now let's talk about AI. So here's the asterisk. So everything I showed you just before was about BI tools, but think about what an AI agent is. It's another BI layer. So, but the problem is that an AI agent can't just squint at an unfamiliar column and make a logical or make an inference like you and I can. It's going to make up something and then confidently tell you something that's wrong. So, a canonical KPI isn't just a nice to have for an agent. It's the thing that stops the hallucination. You're not giving it infinite choices to be able to choose from. You're giving it specific KPIs or specific definitions of how to compute that, and is now essential because generative AI will lie to you. Even the same agent will lie to you in different sessions without teaching it exactly how to do this. So we are trying to teach our agent how to query the data and how to use the data. So how to get started with this. If you haven't done this before, if you haven't used any of the medallion architecture and everything else, come see me. But it's three easy steps. Define your KPIs first. Get those ratified by finance. Make sure that they agree with you, that those are the KPIs that we should track. Put those into YAML, okay, and put those into a format that can be consumed by the semantic layer. Then we'll write the gold views that absorb those version changes between focus, and then pick your tool. You can do this without a semantic layer tool. You can do it directly into the YAML or into the SQL on top of the gold views. So you don't need a tool. Tools are great though. The right tool for the right job. And that is it. So gold views, metrics contract, thin visuals. That is my talk. If you have questions, which I'm sure you will, come talk to us over at the Focus Lab. We will talk you through all of this. And if you are on the FinOps Foundation Slack, I expect you to hit me up like right now, like blow up my phone and tell me what a terrible job this was and what exciting new talks that you're going to go to next. So thank you very much.
Hey everyone, producer Andrew here. Thanks for watching. Check out the rest of our channel for more FinOps content. Like, subscribe, and leave questions and comments for our speakers. We appreciate your support.